I'm back from my summer vacation and I'm going to kick this off by showing you how to use React portals to create a modal. I'm also going to throw in a little bit of Super Mario Bros. And the Nest stuff in this one, so I hope you enjoy it. This is the finished application that we're going to build in this tutorial. And we have this little cool Super Mario that's standing on a button that says Open Modal. And this is all from the Nest.css. If you check this out here, you can style it like the retro Nintendo stuff here. So that's great. That's the one that I'm going to use to kind of lighten this tutorial up a little bit and make it more fun for you guys. So we are going to use this one in our React application, and I am going to build this application with TypeScript. It doesn't matter really that much here, but I'm using TypeScript almost all the time now. So that's what I'm going to do in this one also. But if you don't like TypeScript, you can also easily translate it to just regular plain React without TypeScript. So this is the application. We can press this button, open, and then this modal open up. And yeah, we have another Nest-inspired modal here. So we have a close button and we can open and close it. So this is everything that we're going to build, because I'm going to show you portals and how to use React portals to create this modal. So let's begin. First, we're going to use create React app to bootstrap our application. So we can use this command here. So we're going to type in npx create dash react dash app, and we're going to call our app nest dash modal, and then we flag it with dash dash template and TypeScript, and we wait for it. Okay, that installed correctly, and then we're going to install the Nest.css as I showed you here. And we can install that by npm install Nest.css. So go back to the terminal. Also make sure that you navigate inside of the project that we created. So cd Nest portal. No, what did I call it? Nest modal, okay. So cd Nest-modal. And that should be it. And from there, we can npm I Nest.css. You don't have to type out install if you're using a newer version of npm. Then I'm also going to do some small styling. I'm always using style components in React, so I'm going to use that also. So I'm going to install that. So npm I styled-components. And as this is TypeScript, we're also going to install the types for them. So we type in an @types / style-components. And this should be it. All right, that's everything we need. So we can open up the code editor first, and then we can type npm start to see that it works. And there it goes. It works nicely. So we go back to the code editor, and I'm going to fix this a little bit better here. I'm going to bump up the font size also for you guys. Like that, maybe. And then we're going to do some cleanup here first. So we don't need a service worker. We don't need setup tests. We don't need a logo. We don't need an index.css. We don't need an app.test.tsx. But the other ones we're going to use. But delete those. Like that, and then in the index.tsx we're going to refactor some stuff. So delete this one here at the bottom, and also the import of the service worker. And I think this is it. No, we don't need the index.css either, so delete that one. Save the file, go inside the app.tsx file, and for now we can remove everything inside the app div, and we can just type out it's working. Something like that. Also remove this import of the logo. Save it and go back to the application and see what we've got. Yeah, and I think this is because we have to restart the dev server when we remove stuff. TypeScript doesn't like that. So break it and run npm start again. Yeah, and it's working. Okay, so that's the cleanup of the project. Then we're going to use a font for this one that's called Press Start 2P. That's a Google font that we're going to use. So I've selected this one here. So I grab this import like this, go back to my code editor, and in the public folder in the index.html file, somewhere up here in the head, I can paste this in, save it, and then I close this one. We don't need to be in this file anymore. And if we look at the Google font, you can see here that we can use it like this. So I copy this one, go back to the code editor, and in the app.css file, I'm going to paste this in and remove everything here and just keep the app like so. And we can also create the styling for the app itself. So this is going to be a flex container. So display flex. I'm going to align the items to center and also justify the content to center. The flex direction is going to be column, and I set the height to 100 viewport height like that, and I save it. Go back to the application and see if it still works, and it's working, and you can see that we have this nice retro font here instead. Great, so I can close these ones down. We don't need them anymore. We just have our application here and we can start building this. Go back to the code editor and the index is finished. But in the app.tsx, I'm going to create some stuff here because the app.tsx is the base component for this little application. And then I'm going to create two more components. I'm going to have one modal component and one that's called modal content that's going to hold the content in the modal itself. So in this one here, in the app.tsx file, we're first going to import the CSS from Nest.css. So import Nest.css /CSS/Nest.min.css. Like that. And then we can use Nest Css. And then we can actually scaffold out our modal and modal content component. So in the src folder, we create two more files. Modal.tsx. It's very important that you type .tsx and not only .ts, because then it won't work. We can't use JSX inside of the components if we don't type out tsx as the file extension. So modal.tsx and also another file that's called modal content.tsx. Like that. And then we can just scaffold out some stuff here. So import React from React. And we create the new component, const modal, and it's going to be a react.fc. That's the React functional component. And for now, it's just an arrow function like this. And we can say div and modal. And then we export default modal like that and do some auto formatting. So that's the modal. Of course, we're going to come back and change this later. And then in the modal content.tsx, we can change this one here. So I changed them in one go and rename them to modal content. And then in our app.tsx file, we can import these ones. So import modal from ./modal and import modal content from ./modal content. So that's our components. Then in the app component, I'm also going to set some state because we want to have a state to tell us if the modal should be open or not. So up here, I'm also going to import useState. And we can also convert this one. I like to have arrow functions, but that's highly subjective. So if you don't like that, you don't have to have it. But I convert this to a const app, and it's going to be just as the other one, react.fc. That's for the React TypeScript to tell it that it's a React functional component. And then we have the arrow here. So, okay. All right. Then I create a state. I have modal open and set modal open, all camel cased. useState, and we set it to false initially. So this is everything that we need here. The other stuff here is going to be JSX that we return. So we have the wrapping div with a class name of app. And then we're going to have our modal. And this one is going to take in a prop, but we do it like this for now. And inside the modal, we have the modal content. Something like that. Then we're going to create Mario. So we have the I tag and set the class name of Nest-Mario. And this is a class from the Nest.css library. So this is how we create Mario. We can save it and go back to our application. Oh, failed to compile. Strange. Didn't I save it? Yeah, here you have it. I probably didn't save the file. Okay, so there we have Mario, and it says Modal now, but of course it won't say Modal later. But Mario is working. So below the Mario, we're going to have the button. So we create a button. I give it a type of button. Set the class name on the button to Nest-btn and is primary. So is primary is going to give it the color of blue. And then we're going to have an on-click handler on this one. So it's an inline arrow function. And I'm going to call set modal open and give it the value true. Because if we click this one, we want the modal to open. And we end it like this. So inside the button, we want to have a span with some text. And the span, and it's going to say open modal. Do some auto formatting and on click. I have a typo. So on click, auto format it again, go back to the browser, and you can see that it works. But the button doesn't work yet because we haven't implemented that functionality. So this is our app file or app component. And now we're going to create our modal component. So in the modal.tsx file, I'm first going to import style components. Import styled from styled components. And then I'm going to create the style component for this one first. And I call it wrapper equals style.div. Double backticks, and then we can type out our CSS here. I'm going to set the position to absolute because this one is the modal. We want it to be on top of everything. Absolute. I set top position to 0 and the left position to 0. I'm going to display this one as a flex. Align the items to sender. Justify the content to sender. And set the width to 100 viewport width and the height 100 viewport height. And the background is going to be black. So that's the styling for this one. And it's nice to have it in a style component like this. So we can create the component now. And I have to make an explicit return for this one. So I have curly brackets because we're going to have a prop for this one also that is called modal open. So I destructure out the prop here, just as regular syntax in React. And we're also going to have the children. And as this is TypeScript, we also have to tell React what type this is. So we create a type that are called props. You can call them whatever you want. They don't have to be called props. And we're going to send in a prop that's called modal open. And it's going to be a Boolean. And to give this type to the component, we can do that after the FC. So we have the angle brackets, and inside of the angle brackets, we can give it the props. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is to check if the modal is open. If it's not open, we're just going to return null. So if not modal open, return null, like that. And then we're going to do the essential stuff for this tutorial, and that is to show you how to use React portals. So first we have to import the portal up here. Import, we have curly brackets and create portal. And this one is not from React. We import it from React-DOM. So create portal is the stuff that you use to create a portal in React. So down below here, we're going to return something because if this one is true, that means that the modal is open, and then we can return what we're going to show in the modal. So return, and then we call create portal that we imported. We have parentheses, and first we're going to give it the component that is going to be in the portal. And for in our case, it's going to be the wrapper, like so. And then we have another div, and we're going to give it the children. And this means that this component can be very dynamic because we can give it whatever components that we want and it will render out this as children here. All right, so that's the component for the create portal, but it takes a second argument, and that is where it's going to render it out. So I have a comma, and I'm going to render it out in the document.body like this. And I do some auto formatting, save the file. And also, if you don't want to render it out in the body, you could, of course, here in the index.html file, create another div. For example, our complete application is rendered out in the root div, but you can create another div here and reference that instead if you want to do that. But I'm going to render it out on the body, and I'm going to show you this in a second when we have created the content for this modal. So let's go inside of the modal content.tsx file. And just as before, I'm going to import styled from style components and do some minor styling here. I create another wrapper, and this is also great with style components because this style is going to be scoped to this component so they can have the same name. So style.div double backticks, and I can type in my styling. So yet again, I'm going to display it as a flex. I'm going to align dash items to sender. I'm going to justify the content to sender, just to center stuff in the divs. And I set the flex direction to column on this one. Then we're going to have the button. You can nest that in here. You don't have to create a separate style component if you don't want to do that. So I reference the button here, margin dash bottom. It's going to be 20 pixels. So that's the styling. And then in this one, we're also going to take in a prop. So I type the props, set modal open. And this one is going to be the setter for the state. So if we go back to the app, you can see here that this is the setter, and we have the type here. So we can copy this one. Whoops. We can copy this one like that. Then go back to the modal content, and we paste it in there, and we will have the correct type for it. So it's a React dispatch, and we have a set state action, and it knows that it's a Boolean. End it with a semicolon. Something's wrong here. Yeah, I need to have an end angle bracket also. And then just as before, we have the angle brackets, and we give it the props, and we can destructure out the set modal open. And of course, you can structure your components however you want. In this case, I send in this setter to the content. Maybe you want a modal where you always have, for example, an X button to close the modal up in the right corner or something. Then you can send this in to the modal component itself. But in this case, I want to have it in my content, so that's why I structure it like this. All right, then we're not going to return this stuff here. I create parentheses. And I'm going to create a div with a class name of Nest-container and is-dark with-title and is-centered. And these are all from the Nest.css library. So that's the div here. Then we have a P and a class name of title. Modal magic. You can type in whatever you want. This is going to be the title of the modal, of course. Then I use my wrapper component, my style component, with the content itself, because this is the kind of header is going to go in the border of the modal itself. So I'm going to have another cool little creature here. So I have an I with a class name of Nest-Kirby, like that. And then we have another button to close the modal. It has a type of button. Class name is going to be Nest-btn and is-success. Then we have an on-click handler on this one also, and it equals curly brackets, an inline arrow function, and we set modal open to false. So this is how this kind of cycle is going to work. All right, we're going to have some text for the button. So we have a span, and it says close modal. And just below the button, we can have a little p tag that says this is a cool modal like that. So save it, and this is our content for the modal itself. So let's go back to the app.tsx file. You can see here now that TypeScript complains because we haven't provided these ones with the correct props. So the modal is going to take in the prop modal open. So we give it the modal open like that. And now it won't complain. And the modal content want the setter. So set modal open equals set modal open like that. And we should be good to go. Save it, go back to the browser, and let's see if it works. Yeah, but the button doesn't work. Okay, I must have a typo there. So go to the modal content, not next btn, Nest btn. Save it, go back, and there you have it, it works. So if we look here in the DOM, the elements you can see here, if we look down below here, and I open the modal, you can see that it creates this div outside of the root div here. And that means that the portal is working. And the great thing with the React portal is that you will keep all the references and all the stuff. It will act as a child component to the parent. You can still use all the props and stuff like that that you send in, even that it's outside the DOM tree here. So that's really, really super great, actually. And it's a good case to show it in a modal. So if I, for example, go back here now, and instead of returning this create portal, I just return the wrapper like this, save it, go back, and I open the modal. You can see that it's in the same div now. It's in the root div, and that's no good. So if we expand this, you can see that it adds the div here in the div class app. And this is no good. You could, of course, solve it with some CSS tweaking and stuff like that, but it's usually a good idea to have the modal separated from your content like this. So I'm going to change this one back and see that it works. And it does. So it's super great. I love React portals. It's really, really handy. And you can imagine also if you have a large application, you don't have to, like I do it here, have this stayed here. You could create a context for the modal and have the modal itself maybe higher up in the hierarchy. And the context that you create can wrap the whole application. So you don't have to add in stuff and repeat yourself for every modal that you create. So it's a lot of possibilities with this, but I won't go that far in this tutorial. So this is what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the cool Nest.css library and also show you how to use React portals to create a modal like this. If you like it, please support me by subscribing to my channel if you want to get noticed about more free content.